Hello, everyone. Welcome to Decked. My name is Tyler, and with me is my friend Ray.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing well.
So, what you're seeing on the screen right now is the second part of a Call of Cthulhu draft that was held at Black Moon Games in Lebanon, New Hampshire, a little while ago. The previous episode was Ray choosing cards, and now choosing cards from a number that were being passed around the table from different packs. And now Ray's going to build his deck based out of what he chose in the draft.
I really wish I had drafted a little stronger for this.
Drafted stronger how? Tell me more.
I wish I had. I wish I hadn't have gone for the factions that I did, knowing what I knew of the players at the table.
You didn't metagame well enough, is what you're saying?
I did not metagame well enough, especially for where I was sitting.
Mm-hmm. Because you were sitting next to a pretty strong syndicate agency player, for instance.
I was sitting next to a strong syndicate agency player. I was also sitting next to a strong Miskatonic player, and I was one space away from somebody who I could be pretty assured was going to be drafting Cthulhu.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, the only card I'm going to put in my deck is the Guardian Pillar.
Well, that sounds like a solid deck. That totally meets the 40 card minimum.
That's right. Totally meets the 40 card minimum. So yes, differences in deck building when you draft over regular deck building is there's a 40 card minimum. There's also a small subset of cards that we all have access to, which we can put into our decks. They're all neutral cards, and they help with certain things. One of them helps to make it day. One of them helps to make it night. One is a card draw card. One of them is a text box blanking card.
Insanity Restoration. Effectively blanking.
Effectively blanking.
You cannot trigger effects.
Right, you cannot trigger effects. And the other one is a skill reduction and combat. What does Feint do exactly?
Feint reduces skill and takes away a combat icon?
Yeah, I think that's what it... I know it had something to do with combat. I was just pretty sure it took away a combat icon.
Yep.
So here you can see I'm separating out my cards. Usually the first thing I do is I separate them out by faction. In this case, I am finding specific cards that I know I want to play with. Like, yes, I want to play with Savio Corvi. Yes, I want to play with the Claret Knight.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm most likely going to want to play with the Dreamlands Pillar, although I don't have a ton of Dreamlands support cards to make sure I trigger that because other players do get it.
Right.
Parallel Universe, I'm showing off around the table saying I wasn't letting any of you crazy Syndicate players craft this card.
For which we were all grateful.
Yes. Well, except for the two Syndicate players.
But they were outnumbered.
They were outnumbered.
For once. Usually it's 2-on-2.
Usually it is.
And granted, in the draft format, there are more Dreamlands cards, but I still feel that with Guardian Pillar, it's an okay gamble to think it's going to be the Dreamlands card.
It is definitely an okay gamble. I grabbed an Initiate, which doesn't say loyal.
But it is.
I know.
I don't know if anybody played it that way, but it is totally loyal now.
It was the only one that was going around that I know of, and I played it as loyal.
Okay. Well done. I probably would have forgotten.
And here you can see me definitely starting to separate out things by faction.
Mm-hmm.
And by right side upness, apparently.
Right. Well, yeah, you got to be able to see what the names are.
That's right.
Your key 3 factions are going to be Cthulhu.
Yes.
They're going to be
Shub-Niggurath,
and then Silver Twilight.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, the other thing I'm doing right now is I'm also trying to separate out some cards that deal directly with some of the themes. So I've got a small serpent section going up at the top right-hand corner there.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I did leave a disguised threat sitting in my normal stuff.
Right. But you've got we saw you pull the Shrine to Yig. We saw Padma and Marita on the first draw.
Right. And Padma's up at the top and the Shrine's up at the top, and I think those are noggins in between.
Mm-hmm. Couple noggins, always helpful. And then the disguised threat could turn a Padma, anything into a Padma.
Exactly. Any non-serpent thing into
a
Padma. I can't turn a noggin into a Padma.
Which seems only fair.
It does seem only fair. It's not very disguised if it's already a serpent. And here I am going through and really starting to debate whether I'm going to be able to... You still have to follow all the normal playing rules when you play the game.
Mm-hmm.
I know some LCG drafts, you don't have to follow it quite as hard. But in this case, you do. There I am putting all my Silver Twilight cards up at the top.
And they're going to be like the minor third of the
They're
deck.
very much a minor third. Is the grand total of all the cards.
Are you going to wind up playing just sticking them all in the deck?
With the exception of the 2 Secret Handshakes, yes.
Okay.
I put all the characters in.
Mm-hmm.
And the Ritual of Inferno.
Yeah. Yeah, of all the limited corner case cards, probably Secret Handshake was even... No, I'm going to say it was less limited than Ritual of Inferno, but probably less broadly applicable.
Yeah, definitely. Especially because if I drafted enough Silver Twilight and Lodge characters in particular, it would have been good, but... Sometimes it just comes down to numbers. So here I am taking all of these Cthulhu cards and going, is there anything I don't want to play? Oh, sure. Probably don't really want to play the Pullman.
But he's so cheap.
But he is so cheap. Actually, I think that's probably one of the reasons I grabbed him. And I was planning on making it night a lot. So
yeah.
There's Noggin, Keeper. All this stuff is good. So those are characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Bring down more characters from up there.
Mm-hmm.
Because characters win drafts.
I heard that somewhere.
Yes. If there's one thing you take away from decked episodes that have to do with drafts, it's that characters win drafts.
And we got to credit Rod for that. He's the one who told me that originally.
Yes.
And I'm sure I know it's just common wisdom among drafters, but considering I've only ever drafted twice in my life,
it's a good theory to keep, characters win drafts, and the opposite direction of that is that destroying characters helps you win drafts.
That is true. Which is why it's so momentous that this draft set has a character destruction story.
Yes, it does.
And to my detriment, every time I don't look at the story effects before I decide whether or not I'm going to let someone take the story.
Oh.
I got to get better at that.
See, I had a really good situation where, in one of the games, where Padma ends up getting destroyed from the story, and I am able to replenish with her, and we had determined that Savio was not affected by it because it was not a non-day card.
True.
So I had Savio and a Cthulhu card left in play after that story went off. My opponent had nothing.
Nice. And you're like, doop, 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 success tokens.
Yeah, well, not long after that, my opponent conceded that game, so they knew they had nothing to deal with Savio in their deck.
Yeah. And that's just the worst. That's what makes him such an overpowered beast sometimes. I don't have a day card.
Yeah, I don't have a day card, which is why I know during the draft, if you watched the previous video, I passed a gold pocket watch, and the gold pocket watch is amazing in this format.
Mm-hmm. I do remember that from the last time we drafted at Black Moon, the pocket watch was like day, night, day, night.
Yeah, it destroys so many cards. It's just so useful.
Because one of the things about this draft set that we've mentioned before, but is worth noting, is that there's a heavy emphasis on the day-night mechanic.
There is a very heavy emphasis on the day-night mechanic, and there's a heavy emphasis on the day-night mechanic, and there's also a not quite as heavy, but still pseudo-heavy emphasis on Dreamlands.
Yes. It's funny. Well, the Dreamland cycle in particular was like all about the Dreamland support cards and Dreamers.
Right.
And then it just disappeared after that. But for some reason, that came back in this format. They decided that sort of counterweight mechanic where who's got more on the table was going to play a role in this set.
And it works out nicely, in all honesty.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't recall from my personal experience if I saw anyone doing much with Dreamlands that wasn't the Guardian Pillar. Like there were probably cards on the table that were that, but none that cared about it except Guardian Pillar.
Yeah. I didn't see many that cared about it besides Guardian Pillar either. Well, the Enchanted Wood cares about how many Dreamland support cards you have.
I did not face up against that, fortunately.
Got you. I think I played it in one of my games.
Mm-hmm.
I do end up putting it in my deck here.
I was also pretty terror light. As in no terror. Minimal terror.
Minimal terror. Yeah, well, the factions you ended up playing tend to be minimal terror factions. So.
I think the most terror I had was thanks to Blood Magician just sort of handing it out.
Right.
I love that.
So this is me counting cards.
Mm-hmm.
Going, all right, I need this many cards, this many cards. Do I need all of these?
Really need all these conspiracies?
I really need 9 million conspiracies.
Really? Really?
There's a subsect of the cards that Rod just spread out on the edge of the table, the ones that everybody has access to.
That's the starter pack.
Yep.
Yep. It was interesting. I noticed a Dreamlands Wanderer going around in the draft.
There was a Dreamlands Wanderer that was in the draft itself.
I feel kind of disappointed by that. I would not want to see something in the draft that is in the starter set.
I don't know if you really needed that many Dreamlands Wanderers.
Yeah, but it's mainly there as a body that makes it night.
That's exactly it. But it's also having something that can do that, or the Daydreamer as well, is good, because for anything, it's a good way to get rid of that pocket watch, because it has the leap in ability that and then destroys itself at the end of the phase. And once somebody activates the pocket watch, if you've got the 2 sitting there, you can drop it into play to destroy the pocket watch. Otherwise, that pocket watch gets really difficult to destroy.
I sound like you're speaking from experience.
Yes, I am. The first draft we had, actually.
Oh, okay.
I was sitting there. I actually ended up holding on to in that draft, I was aiming a little more towards day, and I ended up holding on to a Daydreamer when there was a pocket watch on the table until it made it night to destroy a couple of my day cards, and then promptly destroyed the pocket watch.
And at this point in the process, are you actually considering this High Wizard, or is this just the stack of what must be in the deck?
This is the stack of, this is all the cards that need to be in the deck.
And then you're figuring out what's just going to fill it out from there?
Right.
Disguised Serpent. I see a disguised threat on the table.
You do see a disguised threat on the table, which is probably going to end up in the deck.
I want so much for there to be a good, viable Serpent deck. And now that the card pool is finite, I still don't know if it's there. I know people have tried it. It was one of the first decks I ever tried, was Miskatonic and Serpents. And it just could not win against anything ever. I could be teaching the game to a new player.
And it would lose?
Yeah, that deck could not win.
I would think that Serpents really kind of feels like it needs to be mono Cthulhu.
Yeah, but it's just, I wanted cheap bodies to be sacrificing to Disguised Threat.
Gotcha.
So I figured, all the cheap drops that give me something within Miskatonic could be it.
Well, I've been thinking of building one in the vein of what I call Unique Highlander, which is any card that's unique you can only have one copy of, but non-unique you can have multiple copies. I've been thinking about trying to build a Serpent deck that way. Of course, I've also been thinking about trying to build a Deep One deck in that sense too.
That would be an interesting format.
Yes, I have a Miskatonic deck drafted, so are created for that already. And what I'm basically doing is I want to test that out a little bit, and then I want to create a deck that can go against it. Kind of playing into the dual deck ideas from Magic, which they create 2 decks that are designed to go against each other. Wouldn't necessarily be strong against other decks, but they're designed to have fun interactions against each other.
Right. I've always appreciated that about the dual deck pairings, even though I've seen people critique them as, it's not a good deck. Yeah, but I just want to play it against the other one.
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to do with Cthulhu. That way, if I'm teaching somebody, or, even if you and I just want to sit down and have, a fun game that's not all about, building the most powerful deck we can or testing out for a tournament or whatever, we can still have fun playing it without having to.
That has been a common thread on different forums, is I want to make some fun decks.
Yeah.
And I feel like it often sort of gets derailed into what's efficient.
Right. Unfortunately, there's this finite line between fun and degenerate. A lot of people find things that become degenerate are fun. And so, but the person you're playing against doesn't find that fun.
Right.
The ultimate goal of a fun deck should be to have fun playing both ways.
And to make you sweat. Both players should be sweating in a game, I think.
Yes.
I've played in games where it's just been a lock from start to finish, and I felt terrible the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even in a tournament game where it's, it's not necessarily someone who knows what's going on.
Right. Recently, I built a couple decks that were designed to make both players sweat, and it worked out well, but I'm trying to expand it to something a little more widespread than what I had built.
So, having constructed this deck here, did you feel at the time you were going to be able to make people sweat?
No. Honestly, by the time I finished building this deck, I was like, okay, I'm not winning this one.
Oh, okay.
I got put on camera and I'm gonna lose. Like,
Yeah, but Ray wins drafts. That's what we went into
drafts,
knowing
right.
this.
I think there was a little hefty pressure on me. Ray wins drafts. Everybody was like, "Oh, that's the guy who wins the drafts."
Take all the cards away from him.
And take all the cards away from him. And then there was a camera behind me, so I had added pressure on
no
myself.
Pressure.
No pressure, Ray, whatsoever.
Did all your brain power go to mugging for the camera?
No, all my brain power did not go for mugging for the camera. But I did not make smart decisions off at the beginning, and I should have.
What do you wish you'd done differently? Top 3, what could I have done differently?
Paid attention to who I was sitting around and what they normally draft.
Mm-hmm.
With that knowledge, I would have drafted Silver Twilight Hastur right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
I should have picked up on the signs a little bit faster of what was drafting around me. Again, which would have made me draft a little more towards that. And then, honestly, I really wish I hadn't have been banking on things that may or may not happen. Oh, I might get a lot of serpents. Oh, Savio might show up. Yeah, Savio did show up, but it really wasn't worth banking early picks on.
I see. All right, so Ray's going to start sleeving his cards, as you can see. We're going to skip forward in time and catch up with you all in the next episode of Decked, where it will be the first match of the draft tourney. And we're going to thank everybody for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube so you can get notifications of episodes as they drop. And Ray, thanks for coming back.
Hey, no problem.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts about what you were drafting and putting your choices on display like this.
It's all right. I wouldn't mind doing it again, in all honesty. So.
Yeah, we'll do it again sometime. And thanks again, everybody. Stick around, stay tuned for the next episode of Decked.